So myth number 4 was the fat you eat is the fat you wear. We can safely mark the idea that dietary fat is the cause of insulin resistance and therefore diabetes as myth number 5. So when you think about all of this, it seems like the simple solution to type 2 diabetes would be to restrict these insulin-raising carbs. So you could go on a low-carb or ketogenic diet, or you could really lower insulin by eating nothing.
What I've learned. Boom! This video is going to dive into Joseph Everett's channel called What I've Learned, specifically his recent video series on diabetes. First, I'm going to connect the dots he left off the map so you can make informed choices about diabetes and the low-carb ketogenic diets he recommends. Then, once you understand the missing information about diabetes, keep watching until the end of this video and I'll share with you why I'm skeptical of his channel as a source of health-related information. Hey, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you can make healthy choices based on complete information. Alright, the first thing that jumps out from the What I've Learned diabetes videos is that Joseph is aware of Dr. Neil Barnard's research reversing type 2 diabetes with a high-carb, low-fat, whole foods, plant-based diet. But rather than outright endorse Dr. Barnard and his plant-based program, Joseph, aka What I've Learned, decides to convey several different disconnected ideas that lead the audience, that's you, to shift the blame for diabetes from dietary fat over to carbohydrates.
Dr. Barnard's diet is also very low in fat, but that doesn't mean fat is the bad guy. Just because there's fat in the muscle of diabetics doesn't mean that dietary fat, rather than sugar, causes diabetes.
Hopefully, many of you already understand metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes are complicated and shouldn't be exclusively reduced to an argument about fat versus carbs. However, it's clear that insulin resistance, defined as a state of reduced responsiveness to normal circulating levels of insulin, plays a major role in the development of type 2 diabetes. But within the context of insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, it takes a lot of mental gymnastics to miss what is easily verifiable in the medical literature about the effect of fat and the effect of carbohydrates on insulin resistance. And this is the first crucial dot that Joseph, aka What I've Learned, does not connect.
No question about it. Fat, we're talking about pig fat, cow fat, olive fat, paralyzes insulin, increases insulin needs.
You guys have heard that eating fat by itself may not cause an insulin spike, but the research is clear that dietary fat impairs insulin sensitivity. There's also research in diabetics that shows dietary fat delays gastric emptying, leading to a lag in glucose absorption. Not only that, but lowering the amount of fat in your blood improves insulin resistance and glucose tolerance. To put it simply, when you eat a lot of fat, your body doesn't metabolize carbohydrates very well. This is an important point we're going to come back to later, because when you lower the fat in the diet, like Dr. Barnard's plant-based diabetes program, you can actually verify the improvements in insulin resistance with a carbohydrate challenge known as a glucose tolerance test. But first, we've got some more mental gymnastics from Joseph, aka What I've Learned.
So myth number 4 was the fat you eat is the fat you wear. Just because you eat fat doesn't mean you'll store it. A more correct version of that statement would be the fat you eat might be the fat you wear if there is enough insulin present to make you store it.
This is one of those disconnected, low-carb rationalizations you can only get hung up on if you are missing or ignore some of the clearly documented aspects of human metabolism. It's not that complicated, folks, so bear with me while I connect these dots for you. The fat your body stores is mostly the fat you ate. They can take a biopsy of your body fat and determine what type of fat you eat because it's a relatively efficient process for your body to take dietary fat and store it as body fat.
Something is filling up your fat cells, making you fat.
And that something is mostly the fat you ate. Look, I realize this isn't a popular idea, but this is particularly well documented in the medical research, especially with polyunsaturated fats like olive oil, marine omega-3 fats from fish like salmon, and even total dairy fat consumption. Look, Americans have never eaten a low-fat diet in modern times. So is it really hard to believe that while eating a fatty American diet, people are storing fat as fat? Really? Apparently, Joseph, aka What I've Learned, doesn't want you to connect these dots because he emphasizes that carbs can convert into fat via de novo lipogenesis.
If you don't empty your glycogen from the liver by not eating carbohydrate long enough, and you don't empty muscle glycogen by doing enough exercise, that tank of glycogen will fill up. At this point, there's nowhere to put incoming carbohydrate, so insulin has to turn it into fat via a process called de novo lipogenesis.
He's reaching pretty hard here, guys. In this dietary intervention study with isotope tracing, they overfed both lean and obese women about 50% additional total calories plus another 135 grams of refined sugar per day. And these women only produced a few grams of body fat per day, and they were getting seriously overfed with carbs and sugar.
So the fat you eat can go right to storage in the body, and some of it may end up in the muscle. But insulin, which rises when you eat carbohydrate, is what stores the fat.
Keep watching because I'm going to drop some more science in this video, but first let's hear the opinion from another plant-based diabetes expert on this one, Cyrus from Mastering Diabetes.
Now hold on a second. Ketosis misconception number 1. Insulin is your fat storage hormone. Now you may have heard people in the ketogenic community refer to insulin as your fat storage hormone.
This thing filling up your fat cells is insulin. Insulin is an anabolic hormone that has many functions, but one is that it acts as your fat storage hormone.
And is meant to scare people into believing that any amount of insulin in circulation will make you fat.
Now Joseph, from what I've learned, wouldn't be perpetuating this fear-mongering, would he?
In a high-carb diet, unless it's offset with a bunch of fiber, a vicious cycle is created where excessive carbohydrate consumption raises insulin. Insulin then worsens insulin resistance and fattens you up. This insulin resistance means you'll need more insulin the next time you eat for the same amount of carbohydrate, speeding up the whole cycle.
Carbohydrate, including pure white sugar, increases the sensitivity to insulin. It was published by Brunzell from University of Washington in the New England Journal of Medicine.
In a high-carb diet, unless it's offset with a bunch of fiber. But I would assert that a lot of the benefit comes from the protective effect of all that fiber in all those plant foods. The bunch of fiber.
Brunzell's his name. He took type 2 diabetics. He made a synthetic diet, 45% sugar, and then doubled white sugar, maltodextrose, plain table sugar, doubled it to 85% white sugar. Every aspect of the diabetes improved.
Brunzell. Brunzell getting all up in your kitchen. Brunzell took diabetics on an experimental diet from 45% sugar to 85% sugar, and every measurement of their diabetic condition, including fasting blood sugar, fasting insulin levels, and the infamous oral glucose tolerance, showed that their diabetes improved. This is easily verifiable and long-standing science. And one of the keys here is that these people improved their insulin resistance as measured by their ability to ingest and metabolize carbohydrates. In my opinion, this is a big hole in the keto diet's proponents who reference the Virta Health study.
And simply because many people have improved insulin resistance and reversed their diabetes on a low-carb or ketogenic diet.
I covered this in a different video about Virta Health already. It's really quite bold to claim that these people have reversed their insulin resistance when they are not reporting a measure that inherently elicits an insulin response. Here's a clip from that video on Virta Health in case you missed it. They claim the diet improves insulin resistance, but the measure they are using isn't based off of a carbohydrate challenge, but rather fasting levels of blood glucose and insulin. Neat trick, isn't it? The subjects are eating an extremely carbohydrate-restricted diet, and there's no carbohydrate challenge on the measure they report for insulin resistance. So the people on the ketogenic diabetes program have to avoid carbohydrates for life. And on the other hand, many of the people on Dr. Neil Bernard's plant-based diabetes program eat carbohydrates on a regular basis because they can metabolize carbohydrates normally now, because they have reversed their diabetes. Only by leaving out important information like this is he able to lead his audience to conclusions that would otherwise seem suspect when placed in the context of the bigger picture.
So the fat in the muscle may be associated with insulin resistance, but it's doubtful that it's the key cause of insulin resistance by gumming up the insulin receptor lock. We can safely mark the idea that dietary fat is the cause of insulin resistance and therefore diabetes as myth number 5.
Joseph, aka What I've Learned, originally produced a blog called Life for Busy People. Unfortunately, most busy people don't have time to do the research and connect the dots he neglected to piece together for them. While his series on diabetes did present some interesting information, anecdotes like the athlete's paradox with intramyocellular lipid in no way discredits or disproves the effectiveness of Dr. Bernard's plant-based diabetes program, or any of the research I've presented in this video for that matter. Joseph avoids the liability of giving medical advice by repeating low-carb myths and dogmas, therefore leading you to draw the same misguided conclusions he himself has adopted.
I'm not here to sell you on any one diet or argue what macronutrient ratio is the best. Let me tell you the story of how one man accidentally gave us the obesity epidemic, kept cardiovascular disease growing, made billions for the pharmaceutical industry, and programmed us to be afraid of fat and cholesterol. So when you think about all of this, it seems like the simple solution to type 2 diabetes would be to restrict these insulin-raising carbs. So you could go on a low-carb or ketogenic diet, or you could really lower insulin by eating nothing.
That's what you've learned? It's unfortunate that's as far as you've come. The first video in his diabetes series was funded by Audible, and throughout it he is plugging low-carb authors and their books. You have entered a sales environment targeted at people seeking to take control of their health. Videos like his are powerful productions designed to create the illusion of consensus around low-carb mythology. If this video helped you understand why you should be skeptical of the keto diabetes mythology, please share this with anyone you think it might help. Let me hear your feedback in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and don't forget to throw me $1 on Patreon. Red Pill Vegan, next.
Listen to me and borrow your keys from the lessons I learned.